Welcome everyone, and a special welcome to you, Utkarsh, in Australia, all the way, right?
Yes.
So very nice. I think we met for 12 years ago, or even more,
Yeah, I
right?
think so.
Through a mentor and Columbia University,
Yeah.
Professor Hitendra Vadwa. That was our guest back in December, right? And what we have been discussing, Utkarsh, as you are we're among all for this here, that mental health and well-being is identified as a major part of the meta crisis today, right? And I always think that it's an area that we should devote more time. So, Marianne, we will continue discussing that actually in August, and we'll soon be announcing also the 40 conversations for June. And you'll see it's a continuation of this theme from different angles. But you're going to lead this now from the really, how to say, high ground with cars.
Yeah.
And the things we have been discussing is, for me, it's a little bit also what is the chicken and egg? Are we feeling bad because of all the things going around us? Or are we the primary, how to say, cause of all those issues, right?
Yeah.
And so we're really excited. As usual, I don't think I need to remind because it's good that we have the cameras on, your undivided attention, even if it's, how to say, lunchtime. And there are reasons because you're in Australia and it's quite late. So very, very grateful that you could that uh, your time actually on a Friday. So that's amazing.
No, thank you. Thank you for having me, Geraldo. It's a very special friendship that we've had for about 12 years, as you were reminding me, and very fond memories. So when you reached out, I was like, I have to do this. And on Friday is a perfect time to be with all of you. I want to do kind of like a couple of disclaimers before I even begin the conversation, because as Geraldo and I were speaking, these ideas were starting to emerge. Because I'll be honest, I had never looked at the meta crisis from the zoomed out view. I'd always been very focused on the people problem, on the mental health problem, on how we can unleash that potential for ourselves. And that's been my focus area for 10 years. But as Geraldo, you've been challenging me. That led me to study more deeply about how it's a very fragmented system and society and humanity that we're seeing right now. And it's time to find ways to bring it all together. So, the topic that I'm going to kind of speak to, and I'll also share my screen so that I can give you a little bit of reference.
While you are sharing,
Yeah.
podcast, so as a reminder for those that are new, so Peter will be moderating the session, and then together with Kazi, that will have a lot of how to say focus on the chat. So don't need to bother about that.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I'll have my eye on the chat because I want to have this as a deep conversation rather than me sharing anything. Because the disclaimer is that as I'm looking about this topic and thinking about this, I'm not an expert here. So I in no way am here to say that, oh, let me give you one idea that will solve the meta crisis or solve even the mental health puzzle of the meta crisis. We are going to do this together. We are going to do this collectively. So I want to make sure that we understand that this is collective wisdom that's going to end up helping us make a shift. My hope always is that whenever we are spending time together, nine of us, 90 minutes, that's, if my math serves me right, 810 minutes. So that's a lot of human hours going into something beautiful. So to me, if by the end of it, we have not moved from A to B, whatever that A to B looks like for us, then we did not do a good service to each other. So for us to make sure that that happens, it's going to be a very open conversation and open dialogue. I have a few thoughts that I'm going to share, but if at any point anyone feels like, okay, let's pause and deliberate on this, I'm super happy to go deep dive on that. I'm super happy to debate that. I'm super happy to understand more through our experiences about that. Before we get to that, I want to share a little bit about myself so that you feel like um, it's worth to be listening to me over the next 30 35 minutes. I'll keep it short. But over the last 20 years, 40 years on the planet, 20 years of building a professional career, I've always chosen a path where my values were aligned and where I wanted to go. So I used to be a physiotherapist at first. then went into filming and editing for Columbia for Professor Vadhva. You know him, so Columbia Business School professor. Did that and then moved into sales and then got into coaching, and now I run my own business. And throughout it all, what I've found out is that if you have clarity on who you want to be and how you want to present to the world, that makes life easy. You have to be courageous in terms of taking the decisions that help you serve a larger goal, help you have meaning to your life. And so that's something that I've been able to achieve. And I hope we can all always achieve that, like to 8 billion of us. And then conscious impact, that our work, our time, our words need to lead to an impact. I've been fortunate to give a TEDx talk, which Geraldo, you were very kind to share with the group. Hopefully, some of you watched it. If you did not, then the invitation is I speak a word there, which is funambulist. And that's a word that all of you can learn more about in the TEDx talk. I have two boys who are 14 and 11, and I have one wife. I paused at one wife because that was a beautiful relationship we've had for 20 years. So that's where we are. Now, all of us, technology will do its thing. All of us have had these conversations that have been trying to catch up and keep up with the conversations that have been going in the WhatsApp chat. We all understand that we are in a state of a meta crisis, which is far beyond just one thing that a lot of the world focused on, which was that the earth is shifting very quickly. There is a climate change emergency that we should be taking care of, and all of that. What I started to deliberate as I was thinking about this is I looked at how our population has gone up over the last, say, 50 years, 70 years. I looked at how our consumption has gone up. And what I found was that there's a 100x level at which our consumption has grown over the last 2 to 4 decades. We're today wanting more and more from the planet, from each other, from society, from humanity, from anywhere. We can call this consumerism, or and we can go deep onto that. So yes, climate change is a part of that. Pollution is a part of that. I come from till 2 years ago. I was in Delhi, India, a country, a city which is still highly polluted, and and I imagine as I compare our life in Australia versus what it was in Delhi, to go out at an AQI level of 500 was the norm for us. And here in Melbourne, we don't cross that 10. In Sweden, in Europe, there would be places where it would not cross 10, I'm assuming. And so, how in certain countries pollution has become a norm and kids are okay growing up in that norm is fascinating to my brain. We're also going through a very divided world in many places, and don't want to go into the crisis on the war front, on the challenging fronts that's happening, because I'm not again an expert on that. But we all see that very recently India and Pakistan were about to get into a fierce war, paused greatly so. Ukraine, Russia, and so many other parts of the world, and uh, I don't even know what it really means to be in that kind of a space, because I've personally not faced it ever. We're going through poverty. There's a big divide that the world is going through, where certain stratas of the world and population are getting poorer and poorer, and they can't even have one meal or two meals a day. And there are certain parts of the world and certain people in the world whose income and whose financial status and whose food on the table is growing leaps and bounds, where they don't even know what to do about that. I found this really funny, so I thought I'll share this with you, that if the climate was a bank, people have gotten and saved it, because that's how we feel about certain things, right? But we're not doing good things about certain other things, which who are we to deliberate? We are creating this environment right now in the world. Buy now, buy now, buy now. There's so much, there's sale, this is that, you need this, you need that. I was just this morning watching a YouTube video where the person was saying that Instagram is looking at kids who are in their teens, and if there is a girl who deletes one of her selfies that she has just uploaded, they can actually go and give her the ad to a beauty brand in that moment, because they know that the self esteem of this person is right now getting eroded in certain ways. So it's the right time to push an ad to that person. To me, it just baffles me that the kind of mental challenges you're putting into these kids at this young age is enormous. Confusion, abuse, and all of that is happening, and we all understand. And loneliness is is a pandemic which we're not speaking about. COVID-19 is something that hurt us in deep ways. Many of us would have certain stories that relate to that. Many would have moved on from that. But loneliness, how we don't even have in this so beautifully hyper connected world through social media, we're all so disconnected. So as I'm looking at all of this, I feel we will be unable to solve for anything until unless we understand what the root cause is. And the root cause is really hard to identify. As Ronaldo, you were saying, is it we creating this or this creating the fragments in us? And I want to kind of pause and take your views, if like 30 seconds, 2 minutes. If any of us have any views that we want to share, that where does the root lie for all of this? Then let's have a quick 5 minute maybe conversation based on where you are, and then we'll move forward. So I'll pause for a second, let you think through what we've spoken about. And if you were to identify what's the root of this meta crisis? I call this the golden silence. Beautiful things emerge out of this silence. So take a few minutes.
You want us to share with you now or
Yeah,
to?
right
Yeah,
now. Just unmute
yeah.
yourself and pop up some thoughts.
When I went programs with Hitendra, I was even coached this with silence because I have very difficult. So I need to break this silence. I don't know. Am I, so if I can go first, I think one thing, maybe I'm a little bit influenced by this video with Audrey Tang that we have been discussing in our
Mm,
community. I think technology, the way it, with all these benefits and connectivity coming from Ericsson, so the was intended for something. I mean, I can talk to Brazil for 25 years ago or 38 years ago cost a fortune. Nowadays, you can talk anytime. It's wonderful, right?
yeah.
But I think you pointed out the algorithms and the way things are built is built for polarization, consume more, more, and more. And so I think there is something that we created that is both for good and bad here. And so I'm putting a little bit hope. I didn't dig into the material she has developed, but she even wrote a book called Plurality,
Mm,
and how maybe we can use even technology. So, but again, I'm still in very
mm.
early days trying to understand the possibilities there. So that's what I would like to share from my side.
Appreciate that, Geraldo. Uh, Johan, I don't know if I'm pronouncing your name correctly, and correct me if I'm wrong. But Johan, you had your hand next, and
Yes.
then Marianne, I'll come
Yes.
to you, and then Cassie, you'll next.
Thank you. Close enough for yes, as we say in terms of
I
that.
wanted to do
I mean,
Johan, but I thought
yeah.
let me go for just Johan.
Yeah. So I don't think we have a common definition of the word meta crisis. I'm not sure if we need one, but I have heard we have different sort of viewpoints in different conversations what we mean. To me, there is no single root cause basically, but I think one of the driving forces is what you pointed at,
Mm,
sort of the tremendous growth that
yeah,
we as humanity has sort of achieved the last 50 years or 100 years or 200 years, depending on how you
yeah,
measure it. And that becomes a systemic burden.
yeah.
It's a bit like when you drive an old car too fast and everything starts to shake and break,
Mm,
sort of. That's sort of what we might be doing with the
yeah,
planet.
yeah.
And so there's no simple solution to this for various reasons.
Yeah.
But one of the tensions that this has caused is what you actually pointed at a bit, Geraldo. And we have a lot of polarization in the world, political polarization and other types of beliefs polarization. One that we haven't spoken about that much yet, but I think is the most critical one, is around technology. No, will technology save us, or is technology causing this high speed that takes us towards the planetary
Mm,
boundaries? And that's actually a very interesting question because it's very clear where people stand on that
yeah,
belief system. I will
yeah.
end there.
Thank you, thank you, Marianne. Please go next.
So I don't know if you look up on Wikipedia, sustainability contains 3 items. It's environmental sustainability. Everybody talks about it. It's social sustainability. I mean, here we have diversity and inclusion and health. And then you have financial sustainability, and no one wants to talk about it because we have market economy. And I mean, how should an economy look like where it doesn't eat Earth for like 8 months or 6 months or whatever it takes now?
Mm.
And then I reflect upon the social norm in the society. So like the social norm is that you should have an education, you should have a job, and then you should buy an apartment, you should buy a car, you should get a respective, you should have children, all about it is what you should buy.
Yeah.
And then I kind of turned 50, and you're not that old, are you, Utkarsh? How old are you?
I'm turning 40 this year.
Oh, you're turning 40. Okay, I can tell you what happens when you're 50. Then you realize, and I got my ADHD diagnosis as well when I turned 50. I realized that all the bloody things takes energy and time, and that's not what really matters.
Correct.
So I'm like, it's the social norm.
Yeah.
That's where I am in my head. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that. And I'll speak more on that. Cassie, why don't you go next?
Very interesting, because Marianne was building something that helps me very much to continue. Well, first Johan, because I of course expected Johan to talk about there's not a single root cause, but being a complex problem, it will have many things that interact, and we don't know which one is really a cause and which one is an effect. Yeah. And all of them can probably causes and effects. But very connected with what Marianne was just saying, there's definitely a big change in moving from collective models to individualism models, in which the center is only yourself. And in these social norms that Marianne was mentioning, we put a lot of emphasis in the you should have, but we don't put any emphasis in you should do for the others.
Yeah.
So there's also a very big there's a very interesting TED talk when you were presenting the one about loneliness, a very interesting TED talk about Connected but Alone, which talks a lot about all the mental problems that this is causing, because we no longer care about those around us.
Yeah. No. Thank you for sharing that, Cassie. Christopher, over to you next.
I cannot help challenging a little bit your statement here, but the meta crisis, you mentioned poverty, you mentioned different aspects of it. I am an admirer of Hans Rosling, and I cannot help notice that actually a lot of things have become much better in the world. Poverty is decreasing actually, and health is increasing. The number of child births and child deaths are diminishing, and so on. So I don't really agree on this covering all of those aspects. Absolutely. However, I think there are things that we need to be very aware of, this division between the rich and the poor, that actually the rich are getting so rich that it's sort of it's ripping up the whole system, and the trust and so on in the society. So that's my inkling. And another thing, I think, once we go from sustainable or survival in the economy to indulgence, more or less, we tend to focus more on the mental side than on the physical side. So maybe it's a natural development from the fact that we are getting more and more affluent, more and more healthy, and so we are focusing on mental issues instead. These are my angles on this meta crisis statement.
I love that. And Cassie, thank you for correcting. I think the word poverty, I think wealth distribution is what I was kind of aiming at, but it might have come. And I agree with what you're sharing, Christopher. Thank you for sharing that. Peter, you had your hand up next.
Yes. So I'm thinking about, we mentioned here individualism, consumerism, and also sort of like growth. But I also think that important things here is also that we have this mechanism of it's a lot of it is a coordination problem, and I'm sure you're familiar with the term Moloch, the old god that we sacrificed people to, and today that's used as a metaphor to think about sort of like we don't want to sort of like be in a certain system, like for instance we get nuclear weapons because our neighbors has nuclear weapons, but since they started we need to do it as well. So it's very much a coordination problem in that sense, and this goes on so many levels.
Yep.
And I also think that part of this is also sort of like inner development is really, really important as well. And I think this paradox is today sort of like there's actually not, if you should choose a day on which to be born, it's today. It's not 10 years ago. It's not 100 years ago. And still people are miserable. And how is that possible? And I think it's there are probably many reasons. I'm reminded of an experiment that I think it was done on rats. It was called Utopia something, where the rats got everything they needed, and the whole society just collapsed in a couple of generations.
Yeah.
Males
Universe
getting
25.
Yeah. And it's so there are definitely a lot of things missing today, but also we have all the stuff actually, resources and tools and everything that actually could, make us thrive.
Yeah.
And again, so I think it's kind of like a prisoner's dilemma. The best strategy is to cooperate, but because we live on a global scale in an anarchy, there is no sort of like dad that can tell everyone what to do, but the strong ones, they do what they want to do really on the global level. So we must learn how to cooperate. It's a lack of cooperation and benefit for everyone that's lacking, I think.
Thank you for sharing. And I love that experiment you touched upon, Peter, where the rats were given all the conditions that they should have thrived. But even then, as a society, like after a few generations, they fail and dismantle. But I'll come next to you. And then Geraldo, I'll come to you to close it. And then I'll come back to my presentation.
It works much better if I unmute myself.
Absolutely.
I'm trying to keep it short, although I'm from the very north of Sweden. I have a tendency to talk too much. But I think, falling back to Marianne, I think was talking about the social norm.
Yeah.
I really think that's something we need to challenge, because I have quite a lot of friends in former East Germany and the Baltic states, which is a little bit older, and they sometimes look back to the time where the wall was still there and things were better, and although they were surveillance and there was violence, they were in a community, and although they were not rich, they had everything they sort of needed, the basic things. And I think now we strive after too much many times. And just to make another point of view of that is, we talked about Peter and this yesterday, that I had a car accident and was home from work for 4 years, and I was lame, 10 months, couldn't walk. And after 3 days, my phone stopped ringing from work people and people in the business side. And I realized I was not important anymore. And they had realized I was not coming back for a long time. And that identity crisis, which came to me because I was not part of the business life, of the important life. I have a quite small family, and my social networks suddenly just shrinked. And it took a long time to redefine myself and to find myself. And when I started to do that, I at least feel that I'm a much happier man, and other things is much more important than it was before. And I also look to other people and society in a totally different way after that life crisis. So I really like that talk about the social norm. I think we have to challenge that on a higher level and talk about that.
Love that. Thank you. Geraldo, why don't you bring us all together and then we'll go back.
Yeah, I have not anything new, Utkarsh, but just some comments and things that I thought here. So when Marianne brought up sustainability, it was and you talked about growth, Johan. So I'm thinking of the tension and dilemma, because when we had Joe Hagel, it was very clear that he doesn't like the word sustainability, because it's it's not an opportunity driven initiative in that sense. And he talks a lot about exponential growth, the possibilities you mentioned also, Peter, on we never had so much and so many possibilities with technology. And so this tension of sustainability versus exponential growth, I mean, yeah, I'm still very confused. But of course, we can't just grow, grow, grow. But I think it's the human nature that you just don't want to sustain and get. I think he had a very good point as well, Joe Hagan, on that. Then I'm thinking of this with career that you brought up, Marianne. And yesterday, when I met Professor Venkat, he had this, I think, brilliant idea. He's when we're discussing this with the narratives for 2050, the exercise we did in a community. And then we are all maybe younger than me, but still middle-aged people, right? So he asked, why don't you have like 18 years old, really the next generation, you know? Because that we will unveil what are their expectations for the future, how they paint the future, and so because we can't imagine what they think, right? So that gave me an idea. A lot of us here in this community have children in that age, 18 to 25. I know Jenny is not joining us, but she wants to get her son, that's 18 years old, to join us. I think we should do an effort to welcome them and get this blend. And then just to finalize, I wish, Christopher, that we had Hans Rosling alive. I wonder if he would be as optimist. What I have noticed that sometimes is facts, because this is he thinks, right? He has data. I have his book, and so. But it can be also used in very selectively, right? I mean, Mintzberry that we had also for this meeting, he talks about don't measure everything, go out and feel things sometimes, right? And we feel there is something wrong, right? But of course, we are in an age that so much is possible. That's the dilemma. But in my bucket list, if anybody can help, is that we get a Gapminder sometime in the future. It's there. Utkarsh, just some
thank
comments.
you everyone for your thoughts. What I'm going to try and do is over the next few minutes try to bring in elements of what we have all spoken to what I had thought through, because I want to make this a very experiential process for all of us to think through. And what I also feel is the people who entered this conversation 30 minutes ago will not be the same who will exit, because our thoughts and our thinking would evolve in certain way, and I don't know what ways, but we'll build that together. As I thought about this, what I started to think was that there is a missing lens in all of this. And I think all of us together, what we're bringing to this conversation is to identify that missing lens. And the sense here is that the roof is leaking, there is a challenge, but are we also talking about the foundation? What I mean by that is that how we have evolved as human beings. Raldo, you're talking about bringing children into this. I think first we need to figure it out what the next step is to then role model it to them in a way so that we're ready to have those questions answered. Because I know that next generation will have such bigger questions for us that we also have to be ready about. So to me, I think it's the foundation work that we have to start doing on our own and on the society that will help us do that. And the hypothesis that you and I, Ralo, we have spoken about this, is that we are living in a very fragmented, something's happening with my screen. It's going in and out of the presentation. When the inside is fractured, whether we call it loneliness, whether we talk about sustainability in certain ways, whether we talk about how the algorithm is pushing it, how I feel we need to challenge it is that yes, the algorithm is trying to nudge us in a certain direction, but it's us who are making that choice. Viktor Frankl says that between that stimulus and the reaction is our choice. And to me, I think if we all get into that state where we can make the choice that we want to make in that right direction, whatever that looks like, I think that to me is the first step, which is where the hypothesis is that let's regenerate our consciousness to try and solve this larger challenge that we're looking at. And this is one model that I start to really think about. And I was talking to a friend. To me, whenever I see the Maslow's hierarchy, I feel, and I'm pretty sure, and I've not studied deeply to understand, I'm pretty sure that Maslow did not call these 5 stages to be linear stages. Because what it makes me feel is, and how it has been publicized for the whole world, and I was having this conversation with a friend this afternoon, is that you have to first meet your physiological needs, and then you get into your safety needs, and then you get into belonging needs, and then you get into esteem, and then you think about self-actualization. But a child who's maybe 3 years old, they need hugs. They need that safety right there and right then. They need that belonging. If a 10-year-old boy or a girl, and you're speaking to them in a way which erodes their self-esteem, then they're going to be scarred for life. And I do this coaching with the people who are at amazing tech companies, right? And they're talking that they cannot go and talk to managers because their mom at 7, 8 years old said, why can't you come first in your class? What do you do when you go to school? We pay so much for your fees. What do you do in that school? And parents in different ways have scarred it. So we look at this hierarchy of needs and we feel that it's a linear process. And I think this is where it starts to break down. And I could think of 3 ideas, which I think if we start to look at it differently, will allow us to be in a better position to be ready for that next phase of humanity. And it's almost like these are these cycles, right? That parts of the world were in state of abundance till say a decade or 2 decades ago. And certain parts are now feeling the scarcity. But each country, each part of the continent, each individual is going through their own cycle. As I was thinking about it, we get into this trap of linearity. That first, I need to make sure that my physiological needs are met for me to be able to think about self-esteem, for me to be able to think about self-actualization. That I think is the first pitfall. The second one is we are leaving in a way self for the last. And I can, as a child, I've grown up with my grandparents and my parents, and I would always see them, and I'm bringing like a spiritual side to this. I always see them. I'm right now building my life. So I'm in my 20s and my 30s and my 40s. I have a career to build. I have children to take care of. If I have to get onto a spiritual path, if I have to meditate, if I have to do anything that's more for my inner growth, I'll do that when I'm 60 years old. Maybe we'll never reach 60 years old. And that's what I used to tell my grandmom. And so these are deeper conversations that have influenced my thinking on this topic. So we leave self for the last. And then third is we always, this physiological needs, which I think 20, 30 years ago was very simple. All you needed was food and shelter and a place to sleep and maybe clothes. Today you need a Wi-Fi. Today you need a bigger car. Today you need, if the neighboring country has a nuclear system, I need the nuclear bomb as well because I need to protect myself. If the neighbor buys like a mansion, why don't I have a mansion? If my colleague gets a 20% raise, why do I not get a 20% raise? And I think our physiological needs have expanded drastically because it's become a never-ending cycle. Whether it's consumerism, whether it's technology, whether it's Instagram, whoever we blame, but we're the ones who are going and asking for that choice, right? Because, and as Marian, you were saying, because this becomes a social norm. If you're not in certain parts of the world, not driving a good car, are you even successful? And now we also see that other side where people are biking their way into their office to the city and biking a lot because that's the right way to do things. So it's a very fragmented society. And this is the conversation I had with my son, who's now 11, when he was 9 years old. We would go into these shopping malls and there'll be aisles and aisles of candies and chocolates and this and that he'll look at it, right? And he'll say, Dad, I want that chocolate. I want the chocolate. I'm like, you want it, but do you need it? Because there's a big gap between the want and the need. The want is something that you desire because you feel you want it. Need is what you need to sustain. So this word physiological need versus physiological wants have drastically created this gap for us. And what all of that is leading to is we're stuck and we're never satisfied. We always seek more and more and more. We're seeking more from our relationships, but we're all getting empty. We're seeking more from the markets. We are seeking more from our countries. We are seeking more from our presidents and prime ministers. But as Cassie was saying, what are we ready to do about it? I keep asking, if the algorithm is challenging you, if the algorithm is showing you things that it knows will keep you on the platform, what's stopping you from stopping using it? What's stopping you from putting a timer on your phone? What's stopping you from not buying it? That's where the social problem comes in. Because if the other person is doing it, why should I not do it? And that's where it becomes a really challenging task for each individual to go through that journey. And this gap is where our suffering lies. This gap between the want and the need is where we end up suffering, and in a way that leads to the mental health crisis that we're seeing and becomes a part of the larger crisis that we're seeing. And I know I'm trying to slightly simplify problem, but I feel like, in words of Einstein, right? Until unless you simplify it, it'll be really hard to solve it. So I'm trying my best to at least have us move the needle a little bit today. This is the exact example. I want this and I want that and all of that. Marion, you have your hand up. I'm going to pause. You had a thought.
Yes, if I may. So
absolutely, please.
So I mean, in today's society, when I work at Ericsson and I'm an electrical engineer. I'm only valued for my thoughts and what I can see with my eyes, and that's very predatory. So if I look at myself, I have been rewarded for my brain and my eyes and what I can achieve. I don't get rewarded by society for how I feel. So I have had a disconnect with my body, heart, and soul. So that is one part with the digital society and AI and all of that. We get disconnected. In Sweden, I'm not brought up doing yoga, not even meditation as a practice, right? If we look at our Protestant Christianity, it's very like yes or no. It's very digital. But the other thing I'm thinking about is when you're born as a child, you scream to get things. I mean, you are in a state of getting.
Yeah.
You need to get food, you need to get the comfort, you need to get sleep. But then when you become a teenager, you kind of realize, okay, if I help mom pull the things out of the dishwasher, she might give me extra candy on Saturday.
Yeah.
So in the teenager, we kind of learn to give, to get. But it's kind of, we're cautious about it, right? It's not really a pure intent, right?
Yeah.
And then at some point we realize I can feel gratitude over my life and all the things I've been given, all the fabulous children or animals, and I actually have a surplus. So I can actually free willingly give, right?
Yeah.
So I've been getting a surplus in my life so I can give with my knowledge and skills and my surrounding. And then before, I mean, when I have matured really much, and some people never get actually to this state, I am only here to give. Because I can't, at my death, I can't bring any of my money or fancy cars or anything with me to my next place. What do you think? Are you reasoning this way as well? I mean,
yeah. I think part of it, yes, I'm reasoning it that way. But I think the second part that I'm also putting us is that we all have, our life has to mean slightly more than what our life means right now. And what I'm saying with that is that with that cycle that we are raised into and that we end up living, we feel that there is a very narrow, scarcity-driven, skewed view of life that we all end up taking. What I'm challenging all of us to do, and I'm using this generalization here, not to say just this room of 9 people or myself, or just I'm saying for everyone, that we all need to have like a larger meaning to life. And in that larger meaning, it cannot be about, as you were saying, Marianne, it cannot be about money, because you cannot take a big car to the heaven or hell, whatever is the next step in life. I have no idea. You cannot take any of that there. So life has to mean a lot from the moment you're awaken to the moment you sleep. And so there's this quote from Gandhi that really deeply resonates with me, where he used to say that when I sleep at night, I die. And then I'm waking up tomorrow, I'm born again. And then what you're looking at is that how can I do my best today to serve people around myself while maintaining my needs? But then those needs need to be very thoughtfully taken care of. Does that connect to what you're thinking?
Yeah, and my last comment is, that Sweden is one of the biggest countries with the most atheists. So
Yeah.
I'm thinking that you're in a religious spot now, and thinking about that you have a faith.
So maybe let's, by the end of this conversation, what I'm hoping we'll get is that it is not about just sitting in a lotus position and meditating. It is not about meditating to a heavenly father or mother or whoever. And in India, we have a billion gods or whatever number. So I'm saying there's another way to all of that, where you don't have to really take it to the level of spirituality, religion, or faith, or yeah, we'll get there. Amazing. Thank you. Just finding the button again while I go back to my screen. Awesome. So as I was thinking about that, I like, again, want to give ourselves frameworks which make it easy. So to me, all of this that we are speaking about, it boils into one of these 4 categories. We're in a state of comparison with each other. We're, as countries, as states, as individuals, we are comparing each other between each other. Why does that person have that and why cannot I have that? And I see that to the level of my kids are in high school, to their level as well. Dad, that person bought an iPhone 16. When am I getting iPhone 16? Dude, what is why do you need an iPhone 16? You're 12 years old. But that's how the world is changing, because they're comparing. And comparison steals away your joy, because then you're never feeling satisfied with what you have. There is the level of consumerism that all of us have spoken about, whether it's through TikTok, whether it's through Instagram, whether it's through the advertisements that are thrown. And I find it really challenging, because that does not allow me to also sometimes sell in the right way. Because people tell me, Utkarsh, ads, you can run ads to have people buy it, but I've never bought something from an ad. I will do my research for like 6 months before buying something. So to me, my brain functions like that. The consumerism is leading to that endless chase that we're getting into. The third is there's this sense of control. I want control over my outcome. I want control over the next step. I want control over my job. I want control over my spouse. I want control over my family. I want control. But the control is not possible. You have to learn to let go. And the final one is there's this sense of conformity. That social pressure, because ultimately that salary, that job, the work I do, the performance that happens at the end of the year, that all is leading to that growth for me. But that also is letting you lose your uniqueness, because maybe you're not born for that path. Maybe there's something else that's holding you back. Now, all of this that we are speaking about, the challenge that I'm throwing at us is, how can we make self-actualization an ongoing process? Not wait for that linear step to happen, not wait for that last step to happen, not wait for a certain time, age, career growth, not wait for something to happen to be on a journey of self-actualization. And to me, if we are able to figure that out, then that'll start to decrease this level of loneliness that we are going through, decrease this level of the mental health crisis that we are going to. And maybe from that shift of consciousness, all of us can then come together to solve the larger meta crisis. But how do you do that? And so until unless you heal those inner systems, you'll not be able to heal the ecosystem. And to me, I think, and I'm speaking for myself now, sometimes the pace of life gets so fast that even to take a breath, you have to think through. And to me, that's where the healing will happen. If we end up having a fracture, and Per, you spoke about your accident. I used to be a physiotherapist many years ago. So if someone would get injured, I'll ask them to rest. I'll ask them to take a pause. I'll ask them to just stay, not put weight on their body part, whichever was hurt. And that rest leads to that healing. So we need to learn to heal our inner ecosystems. And so the reframe that I'm going to offer through that then is that these are not steps, these are not linear steps, these are parallel tracks. Something happened, the images disappeared, which is absolutely okay. But you get the summary that these are actually ongoing journeys that we're on. It's almost like watching this as a Gantt chart, where my self-actualization can actually start a little earlier than others. But then the question is, how do we really do that? I think where we are right now is on this idea of creating this space for ourselves, which is self-optimization. I want to take care of my needs. I want to take care of my inner circle's needs, and inner circles are getting shrinking at a hyper pace. But that's coming from a space of scarcity. That's coming from a space of fear. I was coaching someone on what day is it? On Wednesday evening, and very accomplished, 10 years in a beautiful organization, but today they're in a toxic culture, and all they can think of is that my identity is that job. My identity is that salary. I've saved really well. I've built a family. I'm in a toxic culture, but I cannot change anything about myself because I'm working from that space of fear that what if everything falls apart? And that leads us to want more and more. That leads us to want to distract ourselves, whether that's through social media, whether that's through consumption, whether that's through whatever path we might choose. But it all boils down to us not giving time to ourselves for our space. And what we are saying instead is that can we get into this idea of self-actualization, where there is a deeper connection that I have with myself, where I operate from a state of sufficiency, where I say that there is abundant available for all of us, but we have to be very sure that we understand how much do we need. And coming back to this point, the wants will never end, but the needs will help us sustain. The needs will allow us to thrive, and the needs will allow us to not go for that pace of more, more, more. And to that beautifully connects this idea of mental health. Because the more we get connected with our own selves, the more we'll have to offer to the rest of the world. And so loving ourselves in an unselfish way is one of the paths that allows you to have a better mental health, but also provide to your environment, to your society, to your ecosystem. And the final idea that I want to kind of think through and share to all of you is this idea of going on the outside. There has to be a limit to it, right? But this journey of connecting with yourself, of going inside, that's an infinite journey. There's really no end to it. And I always like imagine this, and I come from India, right? Again, I keep bringing this cultural nuance to it, because if I would have told, and if you listen to the TEDx talk, and this makes me always slightly emotional. If you listen to the TEDx talk that I gave, my wife actually went through a deep mental health challenge. And the first week when she shared, first few months when she shared with me, even I was dismissive. Like, oh, you're just feeling low. Let's just go out for maybe go for a break. Let's just go for a holiday, and you'll be okay. And we'll do this and we'll do that. Till it started to become like a repeated pattern. And then I studied more about it and understood more about it, and I understood that it's actually something that's happening with her because of the situations on the environment. And so just this thought of mental health support being available as a resource to all of us would be such a fascinating place. And Peter, you have your hand raised, so I'll come to you and pause.
Yeah, and I had a discussion, have had discussions with various friends and acquaintances, and one thing that is fairly obvious that I think most societies, they are mental health illiterate. And it's really strange when you think about it. Why don't we? Because the tools are there. I mean, from your own culture, all the tools and knowledge and wisdom is actually, we're fairly well equipped there from all that knowledge tradition. But if all the people in the world could sort of like just also know about it, learn about it, being able to apply it, then a lot of the things you're talking about, it would just happen.
Yeah.
But it's so amazing that we learn how to read and write and do a lot of stuff and buy stuff and all that stuff, but we don't learn about ourselves and how to actually self-actualize, if that's the term we're using.
I think we are fearful, Peter. That's my hypothesis, because we are fearful that when we think of sitting alone, when we think of contemplating on who we are, how we want to show up to the world, what's our larger meaning in life, what's the word purpose is similar to that. I think we are fearful that we will not find what we are wanting to find.
Maybe, but I just want to point out, I totally agree with that. But even before that, it's just that we are also illiterate. We don't even know that we can sit down and think, and that we should think about these things.
Yeah, Geraldo, you go next, Geraldo. You're absolutely right, Peter, and I'll speak to that. But a small behavior shift is what I'm ending our conversation with in the next few minutes. Geraldo, go ahead.
Björn was first, but I can take.
I think I was first, so no problem. Sorry, I've been listening in because I've been, well, I haven't been with the PC until now. And I do a couple of reflections. I'm going back to my own life, and that is a little bit about all these musts and needs and how you build yourself. And I'm thinking a little bit about something I would call detoxing. And that is to limit for a limited time, limit your needs, do only it's limited to what you eat.
Yeah.
And make sure you have, shut off all your social networks to a minimum. And the best way to do it is what I've tried to do a few times, is to do, you could call it a pilgrimage or something similar. But you basically, there's some old saying, it's solved by walking. If you see that, it's an old thing. You solve it by walking, and you solve yourself. You heal if you can. Bring everything you need. Just walk. And something happens. I've done it the whole life. Usually it's a week or so. That's not enough. So last time we were out 53 days, and you ended up in a totally new position when you done that. And then when you reflect back, what was it that you valued most when you did such a long walk? And I asked a number of people, can anyone guess what they value the most? Was it the beautiful nature? Was it all you could see? Was it the physical? Was it the pride of doing something? No. Can anyone guess what they said? Putting number one.
Being with yourself?
No, it was actually the people you met. All the new people you met that were on the same quest.
Yeah.
So, and then I reflect back to all these, the old tales about pilgrimage, Canterbury Tales, etc.
Yeah.
I think we're missing out something in this society. Pilgrimage, if you do it properly, is a very good thing, whether you are religious or not. It's combining the physical with the mental and thinking of what you really need.
Yeah. Thank you, Christopher. He has to leave. No, I love that idea, pilgrimage. I think what you're referring to, we'll speak more about that. Riza, am I pronouncing your name correctly? You had your hand up.
Yes. No, thank you. It's a very interesting conversation, and I always appreciate being invited to this group because it's really stimulating. I just had a reflection when I heard you speaking, which I fully agree with you on, on the issues that we may be out of focus in the current life. And there is, this touch of being completely disaligned to what is the value of the people, of the person. there is a lot of talks in different organizations. There is a tendency of trying to put an emphasis, but not really, in my view, in the right way. Now, one of the things that I thought when I heard you speaking is there is, the pyramids of the needs, and these pyramids, it's not really set. So that is what also made humanity grow. Cioè the fact that every time that we reached a level, we always increased it. So the issue of changing that level and wanting more, it's what is pushing also humanity to grow. So I don't see it per se completely in a negative way, but I see it negatively in the sense that you still always need to find that space to then, approach that new level that you are getting through. So it is, you see, in my view, it's not completely incompatible. But it needs to be looked effectively in the right perspective.
I love that. I think you're and I 100% agree with you, Riza, because I think the way we are looking at it, and as you were saying, this idea came to my mind where I used to get a lot of feedback that Utkarsh, you're a generalist in the last organization that I was working on, and I think what we're also doing is that this physiological need, we're expanding that a lot, which is maybe also leading us to grow, but we're not looking at other levels as well. So to me, it's like parallel process, and if we can do that, then that might be a next step for all of us. And I'll come to the point of pilgrimage because that's still running in my head very thoughtfully. So thank you for putting that out, Geraldo. Why don't you share something and then let's go back?
Yeah, just actually 3 thoughts. Coming from Brazil, the wants there are so out of proportion compared to Sweden, to be honest, right? I mean, Sweden almost reached some type of nirvana compared to my home country. So in some ways, I mean, even if you're poor in Brazil, you want to have the latest tennis shoes if you can afford to as an anecdote, and so, which means that being raised there, and being an engineer, I love technology. I really need to hold myself not to want the latest iPhone, as you mentioned, and so, right? It's something that I need to constantly remind myself. Then another issue that I think and challenge we have, Mintzberry talks about, Mintzberry then is very, Henry Mintzberry is very engaged nowadays on rebalancing society, right? And very concerned about that. But he says very clearly, and something that I agree, is very challenging to engage people that have mortgages. So you almost people pre-mortgage or post-mortgage that a lot of people here in this forum maybe are makes easy to really engage and think about bigger questions, right? And finally, one thing I'm thinking, Graziella, on Italy, right? There is a new term that I learned last year called NEET, not employed, non-education. Okay, so again, back to what we discussed before on youth. So, and I think Brazil is also very high, and Italy is another high place where 20% of or so of young people don't have an education and couldn't care less. I mean, young people that have parents that the only child, they have real estate, they're going to get well off started, right? And this poses a serious, I think, issue for society, right? In terms of not only productivity, but really aiming to something more transformational. So I think the term is neat. I can put here in the chat. And why I'm bringing this up, that's because I think, again, a call to action that maybe for the whole community, how can we engage in the next generation? There is so much. I think I can refer to this stuff, but so much that I think we can learn by having them more heavily engaged with us.
Yeah, very, very interesting facts. No, thank you, everyone. And yeah, these are all. I think we're building this ship as we're sailing in this ship. So it will take that effort from all of us. But yeah, I'm loving how we're thinking about this. To bring this all to a closure, you know what? And I've used this word again and again. I really feel that we are fragmented. I really feel that we are hyper connected and still not connected because we're not pausing enough. We're not doing those pilgrimages that are needed to heal ourselves. And the idea that I think that I want to present, and I've thought a lot about this over the last few weeks and months and years, is that if I were to ask you, and we're all like smart people, right? So just what is 2% of 24 hours? Anyone? Feel free to unmute and share. What is 2% of 24 hours? Drum roll.
It's about 4 hours and a half.
No, so 2% of 24 hours is only
28, sorry.
28 minutes. So it's 0.48 hours and it's 28 minutes. What has helped me for 12 years to stay sane through the change in countries, through the change in my life goals, through the change in everything? And I think it might be a space which I've spoken to many people about. 28 minutes. We might all not have the luxury of doing a 53-day walk. We will not have the luxury of detaching ourselves from our current environments. But the challenge that I want to throw at all of us is, can we start to find 28 minutes, hopefully a day, because it's just 2%, seems insignificant. But if you can start to spend that 28 minutes in a pause, in that space with ourselves, in that space of healing, in that space of regenerating our consciousness, in that space for, what am I doing here? If I want that next iPhone, what impact does it have on me? If I want that next, whatever that thing is, what impact does that have with me? The way I lived last week, is that the right path that I want to have for myself? And to me, just having this 30-minute time to 28 minutes can be refreshing, can be your space to re-optimize yourself, can be your space to be more self-actualized, can be your space to regenerate your consciousness. Because then what will happen is that we'll start to take the steps that are towards a bigger goal. We'll start to take the steps that are towards a larger meaning. And I know it's really hard. I was speaking to someone in they run a program where they want to teach mindfulness and these ideas to others. They make people sit and stare at a blank wall for 1 hour. For 1 hour to a blank wall. What would one do with that? I would also imagine that we would go nuts, like, what's happening here? But this idea of spending that time with yourself by reconnecting with your deeper self, I think that's where we'll start to heal our inner systems. That's where we'll start to heal our inner ecosystems. And once we do that, then we'll all be able to come together in more beautiful ways to take the steps that serve us, serve people around us, and then hopefully serve the humanity. And I know I'm simplifying it, but I'm hopeful and sure that this space will allow us to. You're absolutely right, Marion. It does. And it is a challenge. So that's why I think what we need is a little bit of structure. And so what I've done for myself, and I'm just offering that here, is that create a calendar invite, maybe start with once a week, where you already put in like 3 questions there. 3 questions that would serve you by reflecting on those questions well. And so when that structure happens, then that becomes easy for you. But this idea of connecting with our inner consciousness, and I want to sum this all up, our inner world is ultimately what shapes our outer world. When we heal from within, that's when we'll be able to heal the world. If we're fragmented from the inside, if we're disconnected from the inside, we will be We will be appeasing the algorithm gods. We will be making sure that what we're seeing on Instagram or TikTok or wherever we are, that's going to feed us forward. From self-optimization, let's move to self-actualization, being true to ourselves. And then just this community, like having this conversation with all of you, I think that's inspiring. That's igniting that fuel, that igniting that spark, where I feel that we should come together and have more of these conversations, because that's what's gonna push us all forward. At the end, we don't need more things, we need more meaning. And once we have the meaning, then the slide deck wants to go back to this slide. I don't know why. But the more meaning we have in a life, and I want to have like hours and hours of more conversation, because meaning is another topic that's very close to my heart. But when we have that deeper meaning in life, we will be beautifully connected to who we are and who we want to be. With that, I'll pause. Marion, you have your hand up. We'll start with you. We have 30 minutes to have a beautiful conversation, 23 minutes. So.
Thank you so much. And you got me remember a conversation I had with one of my colleagues from India. I was mentoring him, and he was telling me, my parents have picked the girl I'm going to marry. And I was like, oh, do you know her? And he's like, no, I don't know her. And I'm like, what do you think about this? And what he said actually astonished me, because he said, I have a lifetime to learn to love her.
Wow.
So, I mean, in the Western culture, where we think, I'm going to find Mr. Prince Charming, I'm going to find the one, right? Yeah. And it actually got me reflecting upon that love. It's perhaps like a muscle. Yeah. You actually have to train your love muscle. And if you don't have a well-functioning love muscle, I mean, it's not about finding the perfect one. I don't think it exists. It comes to like finding a partner and working on your own love muscle to love your spouse, to love your children, to love your parents, to love your colleagues.
Yeah.
It was a really eye-opener.
So beautiful, Marion, you bring that up. But there's and the additional thought is like, so my wife and I, we've been together for now, I want to answer that question correctly, 22 years. So been together for 22 and married for about 16. The person she met at 18 years old was not this person that's sitting here. And the person that she's right now is not the person that she was at 18. If we keep thinking that, oh, that person that I met at 17, 18 years old was the perfect one, and what is this person doing who's out watching TV outside, then it's never going to be a fruitful relationship. It's never going to be a fruitful relationship. And again, the challenge is we are swiping ourselves into love. But love, like everything else, takes time, takes effort, consistent practice. And then the final thought is, with my spouse, I'll spend, if I'm lucky to live, I want to live 120. Hopefully science will take us there. But if I live 100 years, I would have spent maybe 60 years with her, right? But I would have spent 100 with myself. I need to love myself first to be able to love anyone else. So that's something that comes to mind. Geraldo.
Wonderful, Utkarsh. I mean, I'm thinking so much here. Two things that come to my mind. One is this with 28 minutes. So the day before yesterday, we had a dinner, Per and Peter, and we discussed this with habits. Something you do 10,000 times, it becomes amazing if you do 10,000 times, right? In my case, it's about the end of life. So I'm really going to practice this 28 minutes. And the thing that I'm thinking is, last week I was in my summer house and my daughter came. And as a father, she's 22 years old. I'm always picking on her. She needs to get a summer job, blah, blah, blah. And I see that she's really tired of me, And I went with the dogs. I did then this 28 minutes of a chance because walking with the dogs, right? And just thinking, gosh, at least 1 week let's be detox, Johan, and just be with her. Be a good father in terms of just taking care of that. So these moments of pause that I think we need to take are so important. It's never going to come back this weekend. We have wonderful time.
And these 28 minutes, Geraldo, they could be, as John was you were saying, like they could be a walk. They could be anything where you're not consuming something from the outside, but just staying with something that's on the inside. Like I've heard people who say, Utkarsh, I go for a walk every day while I'm listening to a podcast, but you're not with yourself. Then you're with the thoughts of the person who's doing the podcast. You're watching a video, you're with the thoughts of the person who's doing a video. In this, we were all coming together, collectively building on our wisdom, but we did not have time to just process who we are and what we want to do. So that'll happen later. But Cassie, over to you.
Yes.
Also, lots of thoughts at the same time, and very. Thank you very much for the journey. So today it has really been a journey, not a conversation, but a journey. Let me put two of the D's on top of my head. The first one is a doubter. Doubter because we had a fantastic journey, and then at the end, the solution seems so simple. And we go back to the one of the problems we have nowadays with the populism is that they bring for very complex problems super simple solutions. And I'm afraid, is this a simple solution to a complex problem, or how can we see that this is not that simple? Because if the simple solution is 28 minutes with yourself every day, just do it. It's not only that. We need to put more on that. And that's my idea of doubter.
Yeah.
So let's start with that, and then I'll come with my dream.
Love it. Love it. I think there is more to this solution than what meets the eye right now. I think right now, for us to delve deep into building a structure for the 28 minutes would have been a stretch. So to me, just spending 28 minutes is also a challenge, Cassie. And even though I am the one who's saying it, have I done it every day for the last 30 days? Not at all. Have I done it 7 times this 7 days in the last? Not at all. Because life's pulls will take you back. And I'll tell you, on Wednesday, I have a mentor coach. So I coach people, but I have a mentor coach who then we coach each other. So peer coaching. I was feeling overwhelmed and I did not realize what was happening. And so I called him like, can you coach me? And he and I are coaching. And then I realized that it's been a few days I've not spent time with myself. Like, the solution was so simple. And what that does is I'm sometimes eating on my work table. I'm sometimes grabbing a bite while I'm going to pick up my son from school. And I did not realize that how much that was bothering me. And then yesterday, I had my avocado, I had my eggs, and I had my toast, and I sat down on the table alone for 20 minutes to just eat without switching on a YouTube video. And that felt like it nourished my soul. So even to just do this, Cassie, is going to be impossible. I can promise you that.
And that's a very good segue to my dreamer question, because definitely another of the problems when we talk about complexity, and Johan is our master of complexity thinking here always. We know that there are many things that are happening and not necessarily clear lines of connection between many things. And one of the problems is that we have been taught to be active. Being inactive, it's by definition that you're wasting time.
Correct.
So you cannot be alone just with yourself because that's wasting time.
Correct.
Instead of thinking on the future. And the other day I heard another podcast talking about the education. And one of the things that we eventually want to do here is how can we help in education to change things and empower more the people with the right knowledge for them to make whatever decision they take, but it's their decision, not other people's decision. And there was a very good talk about a famous thinker, Robert Keegan, I think it was the name, who studied the way that we learn at different stages of time, and especially the long-term learning. So the learning after adolescence. So it seems that the 4 initial stages are clear, but in none of those we really make the connection that you have done, which I like a lot, which is let's put the self-realization is not an end stage. it should be a stage in every one of the other stages, because you need to know what's sufficient for you in the different stages of the Maslow pyramid, which is probably what I take most from today. How can we put in our learning internal education for younger, but also for us who want to learn at all time? How can we continuously put this self-awareness mindset in everything that we do?
I'm seeing that as a very layered, complex question. So I'm going to try and answer parts of it as much as I can, Cassie. And the first part that you were, so just I think giving these, okay, so the dichotomy here is that we have become, instead of human beings, we have become human doings. We feel that doing is productive, but sometimes it's okay to pause and not do, because maybe that's going to make you more productive. I used to play as a child with a catapult. So I would stretch it back and throw it. And the more you stretch it back, the more its intensity is, the higher the goal will be reached. And so we need to pull back to go faster. And if we keep going fast, it's like, have you watched Formula One? Right? In a Formula One car, the car does not go at 250 kilometers per hour for the whole of the 60 minutes of the race. It has to, on the bends, pause. It has to come down to like 20 kilometers per hour to make sure that they maneuver through those curves. And the race is won in those curves. The race is won when they pause, when they stop, when they slow down, when they do the pit stop. The faster the pit stop, the faster you can navigate those curves. So to me, that's what we're comparing. That those 28 minutes of not doing anything is what will actually allow you to sharpen yourself to do more. And then the learning, whatever you're learning, you can learn a lot. But to retain, to integrate, to internalize, to put it into practice is when you have to step back. And to me, that's the idea we're presenting here. I forgot who raised hands first. Thank you so much, Cassie.
Peter goes next.
Peter.
Yes. And I just want to say first to Cassie, the doctor thing is sort of like this is too simple. But I think that Utkarsh here, he's only arriving at sort of like almost the same conclusion like with the inner development goals, right? That we cannot create change if we don't change ourselves. And I dare to say, get to know ourselves. I remind me almost on a daily basis, and I'm constantly as amazed and happy to realize that I'm a walking miracle. I mean, we are all walking miracles. We are Beautiful. Atoms that know that we are atoms. It's fucking insane.
Yes.
And once you realize that's the daily miracle of life, then you can also get yourself into this frame set of sort of like just being in the present. And I love what you said now. It's sort of like we are not, we become human doings, but we are actually human beings. Correct. Sort of like being is the thing. And a lot of the anxiety and so forth and fear and all that, it also stems from us always making time travels. We pull ourselves into the future. Correct. What will happen then? And oh God, what if this goes on? And if you're actually, I'm not an expert in it, but if you're actually just in the present moment, you cannot be scared. It's impossible, even if you will be executed in 5 minutes. You cannot be scared about that if you're really present.
Yeah. You should go and watch my TEDx. Cassie, what's the time for you right now?
It's
the exact
1:20.
time. 1:20. Cassie, could you have predicted at 1 p.m. that we would be having this conversation at 1:20?
No, of course I couldn't.
So future does not exist. We keep worrying about a future, but we'll never get to live in the future. Because as soon as that future comes, that becomes the present. And then all we have is the present. So let's make the best of this present moment. And I know it's cliche wisdom, but maybe that's why it's cliche. Because it's so hard to do it. Because our brain is a monkey mind. The amygdala hijacks us every second. So that's why it's a very complex, simple solution, I think, Cassie. Even I struggle every single day. And we'll all. Geraldo, over to you. Or Riza, you have your hand.
I just an observation, and maybe because I'm retired, Utkarsh, and I have more time because I was, so what I'm going to say is no criticism, right? But yesterday I was at Combient, as an anecdote, Peter, and there's no criticism here, right? But I saw like how people have the earbuds while eating, right? So, and I didn't notice that first. So I really need to, hey, hello, you know, and then
Shake them off.
I could exchange some conversation. So, but then back with the earbud. So you're right. This 28 minutes it is a big challenge
It
for
is.
individual and everybody, and you know, and the collectively, how to say, impact could be immense, right?
Yeah.
I mean, there is this famous thing about Steve Jobs and trying to convince the technicians.
You love that story.
1 second for the PC,
Yeah.
the Macintosh start, right? And and then he did the math. Imagine what it means for everybody, right? In the time, and so yeah, just a thought, because it's really, maybe it's easier when you don't have the pressure of time nowadays, but you observe that extreme business we have today in society. So that's an observation.
Yeah, it's also a prioritization, right? That if, and don't start with 28, maybe start with 1%. Let's just go for 14 minutes to start with and see what happens. And then the other thing is that I think sometimes writing also helps, because writing is like the slowest form of expression. While I'm speaking to all of you, I'm also thinking about a lot of things, and I'm thinking about, oh, what's Per thinking, and what's this person thinking, and so my brain is running at a higher speed, or what am I going to speak next? But when you're writing, then you slow it down, and so that's another thought that I think is super valuable. Over to you, Riza.
Yes, a little slug. No, thank you very much. I think that you are absolutely right. And I really liked the example that you have provided of the person that throws, that launches the ball, and that, you know, the issue is that we don't realize it until we get into a crisis situation.
Love that.
And you know, I mean, I have personally been a person that has been always active, and then in all of our lives there is a moment that something happens and that makes you stop.
Yeah.
But that moment is not necessarily the illness. You know, it's a moment that it is an inner moment. I'll give you an example. I was about to die 3 years ago. I had an accident, but you know, I was jogging, and then I bumped my head, and you know, nothing happened to me. God was there. But that moment was not a moment of reflection for me. You know, so I stumbled. I was aware that I was lucky, but I just continued. And then something more important that touched my inner me happened. And it was a moment of crisis. And that was the moment where I said, I need to stop. I need to think.
Yeah.
I need to recenter. And it has been extremely painful and complicated. So what you are saying at that moment where you look inside and you need to find, it's not easy.
So
It's not easy, because it's like, where do I stand vis-a-vis to myself? How
yeah.
much I love me,
Yeah.
how much I love myself, in which way and I must tell you that the moment that, you know, it has been now about 1.5 years, the moment that I started this inner process, you know, I stop sometimes And I said to myself, but I am doing 10 times more than what I used to do. Why? Because I am trying to take these moments. And the more you go ahead, the more difficult it is it becomes to find the famous I would not even say 28 minutes, I would even say the 10 minutes in our but then there is another question that is coming to my mind and that I wanted to ask you is that in our lives today, and that is, at least in my environment and in what I live, is that we tend to get our mind busy in multiple tasking. In a day, I can do 3 things at the time, you see? But then I need to find that moment. So my question is, my brain has been trained in a way that I manage to handle different things at the same time.
Right.
How do you perceive these, that it's called, I don't know if it is called multitasking or if it is called that your brain can concentrate at the same time on 3 different things?
Yeah.
How do you perceive these in your approach,
Absolutely.
in
So
your analysis?
I'm completely flawed as well. I have sometimes 20 tabs open on my laptop with 3 screens in front of me, and it distracts me. I think what I've done, and that's an invitation for you, is to assess yourself. For 1 hour, do the multitasking as much as you want to do and as much as you feel that it keeps you productive. And then for 1 hour, just focus on one task. And just for yourself, assess the difference of quality, because I've seen that for myself. Like if I were to build this presentation and if I'm trying to do 2 other things while I do that, the output will not be fun. It's like if I'm right now on my phone and I'm also talking to you because I feel like I can use my phone, then it's not going to be the right use of our time. And so I think we have to learn this, that does our brain really do well when we're multitasking or not? And the answer will emerge.
Thanks for that, Utkarsh. We are ending up now on the 1.5 hour, and you need to go to sleep now.
Good idea.
But this was a wonderful session. You made life easy for me and Kasi because you did all the moderation yourself.
Perfect.
We should always have guests like that. I
Amazing.
posted your LinkedIn link into the chat here because I just subscribed to your Ignite newsletter.
Appreciate that.
So a shout out to you
Beautiful.
there then, and
so I have
people signing up.
I have a following on LinkedIn, a podcast. I have built a journal, which you can find on Amazon. Plenty of things. But more conversations offline. But thank you for this time. Loved 90 minutes. I did not know that they ran away. Geraldo, over to you to close this.
No, I just reminding that, and we have you in for the community. So we can continue this now. It's just a start, right?
I'll answer when I wake up tomorrow morning. Have a good day, everyone.
Exactly.
Thank you for your time.
Have a good. Thank you
so very much.
Take care. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye.